The doorbell rang, persistently. I figured it was Andrew coming back. I yanked the door open and dumped a plate of hot meat and gravy right onto my uninvited guest. But the voice wasn't his. Peering through a thick layer of gravy was a furious, dripping wet Pierce. He grumbled that he'd come over to talk, not to take a bath in my dinner. I tried to bite my lip, but I couldn't hold it in. I burst out laughing until I was in tears. Pierce snapped that it wasn't funny and headed straight for the bathroom. Meanwhile, I put the kettle on. When he returned, shirtless and still visibly annoyed, he finally got down to business. He revealed that my husband owned 2 more restaurants, one registered under his mother's name, and the other under his mistress's, and that's where all the real cash was flowing from. Andrew had built an entire network behind my back, and Pierce warned me that in a divorce, I wouldn't see a dime from them. In that moment, I was pure, unadulterated rage at what an absolute jerk he was. But Pierce just smirked and said we just have to see about fixing that. The next morning, Pierce showed up again. When I asked what we should do next, he suggested seizing Andrew's mistress's restaurant, asking if I had a way in. I told him I knew how to get access, which earned me a smirk and a comment about being a dangerous woman. I set my terms, taking full ownership of the business and paying him back every penny, but Pierce shot it down, insisting on a 50-50 split instead. The following day, he returned with a lavish bouquet, proposing we put on a little show for my husband as a passionate couple. Sure enough, Andrew was waiting right by the entrance. Pierce gallantly opened my car door and kissed my hand, while I languidly thanked him for an unforgettable evening. Pretending I had only just spotted my husband, I asked with fake surprise why he was there. Andrew exploded with jealousy, but I cut him dead, telling him he had lost his right to a say long ago, before walking away. At the dealership, Annie confidently introduced herself to the manager as Andrew's assistant, claiming he had sent her to pick up the car. When the employee hesitated, she haughtily raised an eyebrow and announced that her boss was suffering a heart attack, dropping a heavy hint about what would happen if the brand new BMW wasn't delivered to the maternity ward on time. Completely crushed by her sheer pressure, the manager vanished, returning a minute later with the paperwork and pointing toward a stunning car wrapped in a big red bow. I took over the wheel from Annie just around the corner. I was absolutely thrilled, raving about her talent and urging her to apply for drama school. Glowing with pride, Annie admitted she had always dreamed of acting, but her mother had pushed her into a career as a secretary instead. After dropping her off at work, I drove over to the maternity hospital, snapped a photo of the car set against the building, and dialing Martha, headed decisively straight for the room. Alicia was gazing at the newborn in the crib beside her bed, but her eyes widened in terror the second she spotted me. I motioned for her to keep quiet, promising to finally open her eyes to the truth. I showed her the photo of the brand new BMW, parked right outside the maternity hospital, explaining that her man had registered this lavish gift under my name, not hers. Alicia turned pale in an instant. Next, I played the audio recording where Andrew called her foolish and suggested banishing her to some godforsaken backwater village. Pure, white-hot fury flared up in the young mother's eyes. I asked if she knew about the restaurant secretly put in her name. Bursts of tears streaming down her face, Alicia admitted she had signed the papers. I firmly told her not to hand the business back over to Andrew, promising her my support. A flash of raw greed lit up her eyes. She was completely eating out of the palm of my hand. That morning, Andrew's entire world came crashing down before his eyes. He woke up with a brutal hangover after celebrating his son's birth with Simon. His head was pounding, and over at the restaurant, a ruthless inspection was underway. The new inspector, staring back at him with icy eyes, flat out refused a bribe and shut the place down on the spot, a devastating financial blow. Panicking, Andrew rushed to the maternity hospital, only to find Alicia had already been discharged and left with someone claiming to be her husband. He was left completely paralyzed with shock. Meanwhile, I was already sitting in Pierce's office. I was absolutely certain Alicia would sign whatever paper I put in front of her. The plan was simple. The moment she got discharged, we'd bring in Harvey the lawyer and Miles the accountant, run an audit, and transfer the restaurant into my hands. Pierce's eyes nearly popped out of his head in disbelief. He kept grilling me on how I managed to pull it off, but I just offered a mysterious smile. After all, she has the brain of a goldfish. Pierce let out a crude smirk, dropping a sleazy hint about how she must have hooked Andrew in the first place. But I put that dirty-minded idiot right back in his place. We met with Alicia at her restaurant. I put on a dead serious face and assured her the business was buried in debt, even though the place was running completely fine. Terrified, my rival asked what she should do. So I advised her to sell the restaurant as quickly as possible before Andrew's creditors seized it for nothing. I named a modest figure, but promised to ask my friend to throw in a little extra, which instantly made Alicia's eyes light up. I promised to finalize the deal that very day so she could board a flight to the Maldives by evening. Harvey the lawyer drafted the documents, and Alicia signed everything without asking a single question. Walking out into the street, I felt a rush of absolute freedom. I dialed Pierce and congratulated him on our new acquisition, reminding him about my cut. He laughed, called me redhead, and the payment hit my account a moment later. Now I was heading over to Victoria's to deal with Lauren. When Andrew arrived at Alicia's, a beefy stranger greeted him at the door, and she calmly introduced the guy as her future husband. When my husband frantically brought up the business, my rival cut him off cold, stating the restaurant belonged strictly to her, and dropped an even bigger bomb, offering a DNA test and declaring the baby wasn't even his. He was totally destroyed. Alicia's place was gone, our joint business had been shut down by the inspector, and all he had left was his mother's restaurant. That night, Andrew was waiting for Pierce and me right outside the entrance. My companion threw a subtle arm around me for show. My husband begged me to come home, but I shut him down hard, making it clear he was the odd man out. I asked if he had really thought he was the smartest guy in the room, and finally dropped the truth. I was the one who taught Alicia how to strip him of his business. The look in his eyes said it all. He finally realized I had completely won. In my kitchen, Pierce openly confessed to tailing me. He explained that we had gone to the restaurant the moment he found out Andrew was running around town in a rage, almost certainly planning to ambush me by my building, and apologized for interfering. In all seriousness, Pierce tried to convince me that the closest person I have is myself, and that it was high time I showed some healthy selfishness and acted strictly in my own best interests. Having picked up my daughter Christina, I headed over to my mother-in-law's place. The entire family gathered at the table. Andrew, mother-in-law Irene, Christina herself, while my son Arthur watched via video call. In the oppressive silence, I played the incriminating recording of Alicia. The mistress's revelations about my husband's plans to lock me away in a mental hospital so he could marry her, along with his secret splurges on diamond jewelry, echoed through the dead, quiet room. I coldly invited Andrew to explain himself to his family, laying out the truth about his hidden restaurants and the asylum scheme. Christina burst into tears, while Arthur laid into his father with brutal honesty from the screen, apologized to me, and hung up. Leaving my deathly pale husband in the suffocating silence, I stood up from the table. My children had taken my side without a second thought. When Fletcher, a gray-haired, dangerous mobster, and the lender Andrew had secretly borrowed money from to buy those hidden restaurants, harshly demanded his money back. Declaring that time had completely run out, Andrew just stood before him like a chastised schoolboy. He was given exactly 1 week, with a crystal clear warning that the alternative was a 6-foot hole in the cold, wet ground. For Andrew, the only way out was to go begging to Pierce, an utterly humiliating prospect. But the choice came down to his own pride or a plot in the cemetery. 6 months later, life was flowing in a completely different direction. Victoria and I were lazily chatting in our favorite cafe when Lauren appeared nearby with a stroller, as it turned out. She was now raising Alicia's baby all by herself. Lauren quietly asked for my forgiveness, and to my own surprise, I caught myself realizing that I truly didn't hold a single shred of resentment against her. Suddenly, Pierce's SUV slammed on its brakes right beside the terrace. He stepped out, gently blindfolded me with a thick cloth, and whisked me away. As it turned out, straight to the registry office. To the deafening applause of Christina, Arthur, and all our closest friends, Pierce confessed that he was officially tired of trying to persuade me, demanding that I become his wife right then and there, in front of everyone. The guests enthusiastically joined in, cheering his words. At that moment, an absolute sense of peace and calm settled inside me. Looking at him, I realized with complete clarity just how deeply I loved this man, and through tears of happiness, I gave him a resounding yes. Our life moves forward, sometimes complicated, sometimes unpredictable, but still so damn beautiful.